of what the North Dakota Supreme Court said to the legislature after they went and did what they had been doing for quite some time with the Office Management and Budget bill, throwing a bunch of things in there and saying, you know what, this has got to pass. So I know this one stand on its own, so sneak it in there. You get yours, I'll scratch that back if you scratch mine. And, Supreme Court said no more and threw the bill out. And that's forcing a special session. That's going to be taking place next week. And those things just don't happen. They don't just come together. It actually takes some planning. And one of those groups that does that is the Legislative Management Committee. And in fact, they were just meeting earlier today, and leaving that meeting just a few short moments ago is the House Minority Leader, Representative Zac Ista, District 43. Joining us right now here on Afternoons Live, Representative Ista, thanks for joining us. How are you?
No problem. My head's still spinning a little bit from all the late-breaking developments with the special session, but hopefully we can help the listeners understand a little bit what's going on.
Yeah, let's start there because I'm a little confused as well. I get it. This is, I guess, the overused word, unprecedented. But you had an entire large budget bill get thrown out, and there was a lot of, Christmas gifts that were put in there. So my first question is, I think there was like 70-some different sections of that bill. Do every section have to have their own hearing?
So there's about 68 sections of the bill. And like you mentioned, the Legislative Management Committee met today. That's sort of the group of legislators that in the interim between regular sessions manages the day-to-day, the month-to-month operations. And we're trying to figure out exactly what that means. We're so lucky in North Dakota to have the nonpartisan Legislative Council, this group of attorneys and fiscal analysts who really, when a decision from the Supreme Court like this one comes down, they got to figure out exactly what that means and do it really fast. So Director John Bjornson and his team over there have done an outstanding job getting us as far along as we are for the special session. To answer your question, I think the short answer is no. We don't believe that every single section is going to have its own up or down vote, be its own standalone bill. What Legislative Council has done is grouped those into about 14 discrete bills, grouping appropriations together and policies together that make sense, trying to take what the Supreme Court told us in the ruling and say, these subjects have to be understandable, not just for legislators, but for the public. And they've done a good job trying to group those together. And, the Supreme Court gave us some direction, gave us a ruling, but there's not a bright line rule set out in it either. So we're going to have to learn what that means as we go a little bit here in the legislature.
This was a Senate bill here on the House. So do all of these bills have to be introduced on the Senate side?
No, not necessarily.
Okay. All right.
The rules package that was adopted in the legislative management today is proposing to have two joint committees. Those will be committees of House and Senate members that meet jointly with members from each. One will be an appropriations committee. That's going to be the same appropriators who served during the session, and the other is going to be a policy committee that's going to consider all those parts of the bill that didn't just allocate money, but actually changed state policy. And I think it remains to be seen what bills are going to be styled as House bills versus Senate bills. But the proposal from legislative management, as I understand it, will be that legislative management is the one that introduces and forwards bills to the full assembly for consideration.
I suppose the reason why I asked is, I know that the hope is to get this done in 3 to 5 legislative days, and even hearing that there's about 14 different bills, is that going to be doable?
It's going to be a heavy lift. Legislators are going to be having to work overtime to sort of refresh our recollections as to these discrete provisions. That legislative council staff I mentioned, they're not going to have the most enjoyable weekend of their lives, unfortunately. There's going to be a lot of work done to get these bills into a presentable form to the legislative assembly. I think 3 days is probably pretty optimistic. Do I think we can get it done in a week? Yeah, if we buckle down and do the work, I think we could get our business done in 5 days.
Is this going to be limited to just that? I know that there are some people that are out in Bismarck right now that are viewing this as an opportunity potentially to introduce things that they didn't get past this last legislative session. Is that going to be allowed, or is that going to be prohibited from this legislative special session next week?
Yeah, that was a real hot topic during our legislative management meeting today. And, I believe that we have to be efficient and thorough in our work, but we also have to be transparent to the citizens of North Dakota, and also recognize that legislators were elected to legislate. If somebody's got a bill idea, they have a right to have an airing on that. So what the Legislative Management Committee decided today is to set a deadline for later in this week for legislators to make a request. What bills do they want put forward? And then that Legislative Management Committee is going to reconvene on Friday, and if necessary again on Monday morning, to figure out if those ideas have merit. Now, I can tell you, Tyler, that the sense of that Legislative Committee, and it's one I largely share, is we should have a pretty narrow in scope session. Let's fix the errors that were made in this OMB bill and reauthorize the provisions that have merit, set aside those that don't, and get that work done. I would note, though, that the governor's executive order suggested that maybe we'll look at things more broadly. There's hints in there about tax relief, about strategic investments, and I think the governor's looking at do we have additional funds available since we gavelled out that could be better spent to help citizens in North Dakota rather than just sit in a low return bank account until we gobble back in 2025. Those are going to be the discussions we'll hear the rest of this week and as we get back into Bismarck next week.
Representative Zac Ista, our House Minority Leader, you mentioned Burgum's executive order, Governor Burgum, that is, and that opens up a whole other opportunity, I guess, or depending on how you look at it, because there was legislative days that were allowed. And if memory serves, since the governor called you back in, because they want to have this, when he puts that pen to paper, whatever does pass goes into effect immediately, not, hey, you got to wait the 90 days or whatever that timeline is. Does that leave basically unlimited days for a special session because he called you back in and not yourselves?
Well, you're right. We're not bound by the 80-day cap set on us in the Constitution. But you may recall from your time in the legislature that we do sometimes take creative license in how we count those days anyhow. So that 80-day limitation isn't quite as hard and fast as maybe your layperson would read it. But the fact that the governor called us in, and I encouraged him to, so did Senate Minority Leader Kathy Hogan and the majority leaders, we jointly encouraged the governor to do that, primarily for this reason you mentioned, because without it, there's a risk of a 90-day lapse between when the bills are signed and when they go into effect. And what we don't want to do is risk playing any games with those dedicated state employees who are counting on us to make sure their paychecks can get processed on time.
Mm-hmm. What was the attitude on legislative management, or what's the attitude you've heard from your colleagues? Because I said this before you were able to join us. I mean, there's been a history, and I know that the makeup's different now. I know that the leadership that was out there when I was there is no longer there. In both the majority and the minorities. But there is, in the majority side, kind of this behavior of, well, I'll show them. Is that the attitude? Because I worry about the Public Employees Retirement Board. I worry about the judicial branch that sided with the public employees. Is there anything that concerned you as far as the attitude goes about what this special session could mean?
Well, I think what we have to do is make sure we look at what happened with this OMB bill, look at the guidance from the Supreme Court and see what lessons we can take from that, right? It's probably not good policy making to just put a handful of legislators in a room, come up with a take it or leave it bill, and then vote on that after 2 in the morning in the House of Representatives. So what I think we need to do is make sure we're being transparent, make sure we're being inclusive, make sure that the best ideas are heard and given a fair hearing. And then at the end of the day, it's time for legislators to vote up or down on individual proposals. So, I'm sure every member has their individual priorities they want to advance, but we just got to make sure everybody does have their voice heard, and I think that's an important priority moving forward.
Representative Ista, one of the things that I noted was at the end of the session for the first time that I recall, they didn't allow minority members on this very committee that saw this exact bill of office and management and budget. In the negotiations, did you get confirmed that they'll allow the minority members to serve on this committee? Because I think it could be easy to point to that decision as part of the reason why this entire legislative body's in this mess.
Well, right. Tyler, we were frustrated with that in the Democratic caucus that, notwithstanding years and years of tradition, the Democrats were excluded from that conference committee. I think we've been pretty good faith governing partners, and that's what we would have done had we been given a seat at that table. But, what legislative management passed out today in a rules proposal, what was discussed from Majority Leader LaFleur in the House and Hogue in the Senate, was their intention to include at least 2 Democrats on the policy committee that's going to be proposed for this special session. And, of course, we already have Democratic members on the Appropriations Committee, and the plan would be for them to continue on that. So it looks like we're going to have Democrats at the table, and I think that's a huge improvement, and it's going to make for better public policy.
Messages coming in for you. I want to read this one before I let you go. Tyler, Zac Ista gave a more thoughtful explanation than the majority leader. When will he announce for Congress? I'll let you take a swing at that one.
Look, I appreciate it, but I've got my hands full serving the good people of District 43 up in Grand Forks and leading the Democratic caucus in the House. We got a big lift ahead of us out in Bismarck in this special session, and we're focused on doing the people's work, doing it well, doing it efficiently, and hopefully that means we get that work done also as fast as possible.
So a week from Monday, that's when the bags are packed. You're getting back to the hotels out there, and then hopefully by Friday you guys are out of there?
Yeah, so a week, just a few days from now. So October 23rd, the plan is to gavel back in for special session and get down to the hard work of reauthorizing the best provisions of that bill.
Anything that I missed today, Representative Ista, before I let you go? I appreciate short notice you being able to join us, but final word goes to you.
I just encourage all your listeners to keep tabs on what's going on. I know we're not typically used to legislative activity this time of year, but a lot of important decisions are going to be made, and it's important to keep track of those.
Well, we will try our best right here on Afternoons Live, my man. I appreciate you joining us. You take care until then, all right?
Sounds good.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, that again, Representative Zac Ista, House Minority Leader, District 43 up in Grand Forks. Heard a couple of things in there that caught my attention that, all right, we're going to entertain the fact that we would allow other bills, other provisions to be debated. Does that open up the floodgates? I'll take your comments at 35270. That's the Adventure RV Text Club. Again, I'm broadcasting live. I'm over at Sparklight. Get on over here between now and, well, I guess whenever you get off work, the door's going to be open until 6 o'clock. Come on over. Get signed up for that 12-month offer and got those first 3 months free. Also, during the month of October, your Sparklight's donating a portion of their proceeds from all installations to the Edith Sanford Breast Cancer Center. Again, with breast cancer awareness, another great opportunity to get on over here. Get yourself some 3 free months and know that you're going to be donating to the Edith Sanford Breast Cancer Center. Afternoons Live rolls on right here on KFGO.